Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Dracovin Empire. I hope you're ready to dive back into Golarion, the Pathfinder role-playing game's world setting. We're going to be plane shifting into there to visit something. Well, someone. We are also going to be traveling back into time. Not that long, because this is a man that was technically resurrected and died again. Yes, we're going to be learning about Zin, the founder of the Thassilonian Empire, an Azlanti human thrown into exile with his followers who formed a secondary great human empire during that time period that also fell to Earthfall. It's a mess. So grab my hand. I'm going to be your host here, your guide through the multiverse, through the plane shifting, through the gates to ancient Thassilon and a man named Zin. Cantus Narravan Dracovin leading you there. Remember to give at least a tip here. If you're over on YouTube, that takes the form of liking, ringing the bell, subscribing, and all that stuff. Let's head to Thassilon. We've arrived. This ancient empire is formed. We can learn about its great founder, Emperor Zin. But if we're going to dive into Emperor Zin and his history, we have to know where I learned about this, where I found this information to discuss with you. And there are some sources. A big source is, of course, the Shattered Star Adventure Path. I would recommend that one as a good place that gives a lot of information on ancient Thassilon. Similar speaking, the Lost Empires book does that too. Both of those are from first edition, with the world guide adding in a little bits and pieces here to fill in the blanks. With these, you can get a pretty good picture of Zin and Thassilon, the empire he created. But who was Zin? What do we know about Zin? He was an exile from Azlant. He founded Thassilon. Granted, his empire would be eventually divided between the Scoblin Rune Lords that he created. He's known as the First King, the Emperor. Zin is not a terrible man, to say the least. At very least, when he was alive, Old Zin would be called, alignment-wise, lawful neutral. A powerful male Azlanti human wizard with coming from the city of Zin, being connected to it. At least he was connected to him. He originally died in negative 6420 AR and served Thassilon, indeed. He would eventually be destroyed again in 4712, but that's another story that we'll be getting into. Let's talk about his early life. He was born in the heyday of Azlant. The Azlanti Empire at its great, an heir to influential family, trained as a wizard from a young age, a natural prodigy. They considered his lessons boring and stifling. He survived that traditional Azlanti wizardry was not the only way of manipulating magic. He abandoned his lessons. He traveled to Vastian, discovered different magical traditions, elven crystal magic, Varisian divination, Shuanti war runes, all of which were dismissed as primitive by the Azlanti. He was fascinated by and discovered portions of Ogothu's magic, which the Azlanti feared and considered taboo. His discovery was followed by other Azlanti who discovered other influences, and eventually did discover the influence of the Ogothu's on his society. He paved the way for Azlanti opposing the Ogothus, which eventually did lead to Earthfall. But yeah, unfortunately, things might have... If they hadn't learned that influence, the eventual power of the Empire may have meant something really great for the Ogothus. So it's really better in the end, it was discovered, even though Earthfall happened to destroy the continent. Zin was frustrated with what he perceived as racism, basically. And again, he as a man is not apt. He brought with him good intentions. It's just that those that under him perversed that to what became the terribleness of Thassilon. He was good, his people were bad. I think that's the most tragic part of this entire thing, of my introduction to how terrible Thassilonians were. It's not because of Zin. He lobbied against the arrogant attitudes of the Azlanti wizards. And as he recruited a large following of younger Azlanti, basically got resentment, and his opportunities declined. Eventually, in 6533 AR, he announced a new method for mastering magic that built upon Azlanti virtues of rule to organize magical spellcasters, which he devised with a combination of Azlanti and foreign magic. At that time, when he announced this, the ruling wizards had nothing. They give him one choice. Abandon this resource or face exile. He didn't hesitate to go to exile. And so Zin and thousands of his followers went into exile. The apprentices, their families, they all left. They made the journey across the Arcadian Ocean to what is known as Hollow Mountain in negative 6530 AR, founding the settlement of Zin Bakrahan. This is the foundation of the Thassilonian Empire, in what would become Varese. Zin knew that he had found a land where he could prove his former masters wrong. He quickly expanded to the east, coming in conflict with local humans and elven tribes. These people did not resist him for long, fearing Zin for his powerful magic, but also seeing the technological advances and alliance with him could bring. Within a short time, Zin founded not only the state of Bakaram, but also those as... I'm going to butcher this one. Adasarial on the Ironbound Archipelago, Cirician in southmore and southern Phrygia, Euruthian in southern Varesia, and Shalast in central and northern Varesia. So, we now have Thassilon, at least in its early days. The Empire is formed, and yes, there was conflict, but at very least he got along generally with the people there. He helped create this empire, but many of the orders of knights and wizards, even fostering monastic orders, helped educate the Parisians and the Shwanti. His role was to create civilized parasites within his empire. To do this, he bargained with mighty powerful creatures, ancient dragons, inscrutable outsiders. These creatures granted knowledge of rune magic, some said to be the language of creation itself, and the worship of the goddess of rune magic, Thassilon. Zin created the Sidra, spent nearly a quarter century developing and finding rune magic, and used his knowledge in many aspects of day-to-day life within Thassilon. Within a few short years, the Azlanti colony became the second great human empire on Golarion. This is where things begin to fall. Eventually, it's too large for Zin to control. This great empire he created. And he began to resent the necessities of rule, which distracted him from his magical resource. And in 6480, he chose the most powerful apprentices of each school, Aperdash, Caldernay, Halpiniste, Nath, Sorsen, Xandragul, Ziri, to become the first rune lords, each responsible for the governance of one of the regions. However, and this is a big however, Rune Lords did not have Zin's virtue, and under the Rune Lords, each territory became corrupted reflections of the virtue it was meant to represent. Thassilon becoming the horrible place it was a direct result of this unfortunate. Forming the Sidra. Relieved of his duties as ruler, Zin turned his attention to research. As he aged, old Zin, as he was called his final years, started losing his grip over the realm and his magical abilities, but never became aware of the Rune Lord's deprecations until many years later. Numerous poisoned meals and assassinations turned Zin paranoid. He cast out his courtiers from his house, replacing them with clockwork Indians. He grew old and frail. He crafted a clockwork reliquary, whole house's soul, and lead his clockwork army. However, this was only possible because Zin dismantled the Sidron first and used his magic within to move his soul. The Rune Lords were aware that Zin would be devoid of his greatest magical protection during this project. They watched and waited in a negative 6420. As soon as they detected Zin's transferring his soul, they sent a rune giant, Chalisax, to assassinate him. As Chalisax struck a killing blow, Zin pulled out a shard of the Sidron from the clockwork reliquary. The energy that would have transferred his soul instead burst outward, annihilating Zin, Chalisax, and his palace alike. His reign lasted 110 years. After his death, Zin's oldest son was placed on the throne, but at the point the rule of the empire fell to Rune Lords. His oldest son was just a puppet. Zin's son was just there to keep tradition. He was imprisoned in the city of Zin, and he could just watch as he was being controlled. Before his death, Zin had already been planned for the eventuality of his assassinations. The Rune Lords were too power-hungry to allow the whole Sidron to be owned by one individual, so they would war against each other for control of the artifact. Once one of them emerged victorious and rebuilt the Sidron, Zin would return to take his revenge, and to prepare this, he siphoned key energies away from the Sidron. But the Rune Lords also foresaw all of this and agreed to divide the Sidron Sarge amongst themselves, ensuring they would never rebuild and Zin remain dead. The city of Zin was allowed to fall into ruin. So basically, he was like, oh, they're going to betray me, they're going to assassinate me, I've been paranoid this entire time, I'm going to place failsafes on this that will allow me to get revenge. And they're like, you know what, he's probably placed failsafes on this. Let's not fight this out, try to get this, let's each get one, let's try to remain civil. Though I totally hate you. Zin's spirit didn't pass in the Boneyard. Continued to haunt his palace. Though not quite a ghost, not quite a haunt, he basically went insane in all the centuries. And his magic did not fade. He continued it. He waited for the Hedron to be remade, so Zin could, and his city could be restored. And in 4712, adventurers from Magnafor triggered his contingency by rebuilding the Hedron, causing the sunken city of Zin to rise from the sea, awakening him from his slumber. The millennia had not been kind to him, brought back in his clockwork body. He reactivated his army in an attempt to conquer Maran and Berezia and restore his empire, at this time mad. Before he could do so, the adventurers invaded the Risen Isle, destroyed his reliquary, and basically allowed his tormented soul to go to the Boneyard. The adventure path I already mentioned at the beginning here that, involves with this. There you go. As I said, the Shattered Star, that adventure path deals with this entire thing of his soul coming back into his body and being there. But yeah, that's Zin. An unfortunate character. Because he founded something that became, in a lot of ways, the opposite of what he wanted. Thassilon, the empire he created, though he ruled it for a short time, existed for much longer than that. The Rune Lords, in their many forms, ruled it for many times, and brought that paradise he wanted to very much so the opposite. They corrupted his ideals and made it an awful place of oppression and, slavery, of torment, of demagoguery, of all the most awful things. In a lot of ways, that was fascinating. Azlanti, they were bad. They looked down on all other people in the world. But they usually didn't go out of their way to deal with him. And granted, there's some things about Zin that we learn about, that we know about, that make him such a great character. His exploring of the Golarion magic allowed others to discover Olgothu's attempts to influence and control Azlanti society. That's a major thing that led to these changes and the downfall of both the Olgothu and the Azlanti. The Olgothu's attempts to wipe out their minions who were going to betray them led to their own downfall eventually. The Olgothu have never recovered to the great strength they were. They are minions of the deep and influence things, but they don't have that connection to the surface they once did what they had with the Azlanti. Their revenge caused them their own downfall. It cost the Azlanti people and the Azlant continent a price. But if it wasn't for Zin, that wouldn't have happened. And it's a shame to see that in his old age, his fall, his torment, and all the terrible things that happened to him with his spirit. It's one of those things that it feels better to know that now he's finally been laid to rest. His spirit allowed to pass on to the afterlife, and that all the torment and all the problems that he had are gone. And I can only hope that Pharazma judged him for the great things he did, rather than what he became as almost kind of like a clockwork monster. By the time he was thinking about that, he probably wasn't in his right mind yet. Zin's a tragic figure. And that's the easiest way to say it. Thassilon, if Thassilon hadn't, if the Rune Lords had been better, maybe something great, a great empire, far greater than anything that the Azlanti could have been doing. But infighting, corruption, hatred, negativity, terribleness is what ruled Thassilonian Empire. People that Zin wanted to help and make better for themselves became just lowly and mistreated. Zin's vision fell. And that's what we can remember. He had vision. Thassilon could have been. The Thassilonian Empire could have been. That's his That's his case. Did it again. But I will leave things there today for talking. I honestly wasn't aware of the full depths of Zin and what he was because of a lot of issues with the Azlanti and the connections with Thassilon and the exiles. Learning that what Thassilonian became and the fact that they were exiled for not wanting to be like racist or basically, well, I'd say racist, but basically hateful to every other culture in the world, regardless of species, ancestry, is kind of impressive that someone didn't want that. Someone saw the beauty in magic and all these other magical systems and that there was deeper magic to be found. But he went into depths, going into things like rune magic and stuff that eventually led to more of corruption. And you know, Lucella also kind of got corrupted. It's one of those things, as we see modern-day Lucella, is lawful evil if you talk about alignment, in comparison to her old ways, which was just lawful, neutral. It's this corruption that happened with a lot of things that happened around the Azlanti and Thassilon, and it's tragic. Anyway, if you want to check out more of my stuff, you can always catch me live over on my Twitch side when I do recordings, and also do able gaming streams. With that schedule, check out my Discord, over on my YouTube About section, the discussion section, and over on Twitter/X, or eventually when I get it set up for Blue Sky. All those will be linked below, though, so you can check that out where my schedule is. That's also where you get a lot of updates on things and changes in the schedule, moving things around, if I have to do things. Make sure to check out, before it's done, even after it is, Crimson Queen. It's been my Pathfinder 1st edition game. We're getting close to the end at the time of this recording. I recommend checking that out, or any of my other live plays of TTRPGs. If you want to join me live for that, it's Mondays at 8. Discussing Tabletop Saturdays at 6. That's where we talk about news of the week or deeper discussion topics. Remember to do all those things that you do over on YouTube, like subscribing the bell, etc., etc., etc. Or, just to follow over on Twitch. All those things help at very least. Hey, my question for today is, have you done the Shattered Star Adventure Pack? Or other adventures that deal with Thassilonian? Because there's a lot of adventures that deal with Thassilonian, and we really see Thassilon and the Thassilonian Empire from those times post-Zin, when the Rune Lords ruled it and changed the Empire to what we know about it mostly now. This corrupt, dark magic kind of place that really dealt into some very dark things. Yeah, that's post-Zin. So I'm interested in what people think about this. If you've done some other stuff with Thassilon that you know about, it had a very noble start. For a little bit, at least. Maybe 100 years. Anyway, I'm going to get going. But until the next time we chat, mute me for a recording or anything else, I might go hang out with Twitch for a little bit. Until those next times, though, I bid you out there all a deep and wonderful farewell.